Today on All Things 80s, we're talking about the midgets of Star Wars. Welcome back to All Things 80s, and today we're talking about the midgets of Star Wars. And no, we're not doing a video on Kenny Baker or Warwick Davis. I'm talking about the tiny figures that Kenner released. Now, I've said many times in my other videos that when buying a Star Wars figure as a child, value for money was always of top importance to me. And as a result, the figures we're going to discuss I never had as a child, as I just did not see good value for money in such a tiny little figure. However, as the years have gone by and I'm building my collection again, I have a whole new appreciation for these little figures. So let's take a look at the tiny figures that Kenner released, and we'll talk about each one in turn. Okay, so here we are with Kenner's tiniest figures lined up, and we have Lord Vader to the side here just to sort of give a comparison and to understand what I was talking about, where I keep mentioning that value for money was always a very important factor in deciding which figure to buy. So when you were in the store, and back then, there was peg upon peg of these Star Wars figures for sale, and you had your £1.50 or a couple of bucks to spend on a figure, you wanted to get as much bang for your buck. And if you saw a figure with these dimensions alongside figures like this, I know that I personally would go straight for the bigger figure. But since I now have these in my collection, we can talk about them a bit more. So first up was the Jawa, and I guess to sort of add a bit more value for money to a small figure, they gave it the cloth cape. And looking at it now, I mean, it does look like a Jawa should do. Very sort of movie accurate. But I remember looking at these in the stores when I was a small boy and thinking, there's no way I'm spending my money on something so small. And it's, to be honest with you, I actually preferred the vinyl caped version, because this one, you can't see anything of the figure whatsoever. Even with, you can't even pull the hood back. This to me is just not a good figure. Especially as a child, I thought this was a terrible looking figure. I mean, it looks good now certainly, but in terms of getting value for money, this was not on my shopping list. So next up we have the red Snaggletooth. Now, obviously Kenner screwed up when they produced them in the sort of larger sized blue Snaggletooth, which in itself is a much nicer figure. This one probably represents the least value for money of all this, I want to say short, but small figures, because he only comes with a blaster. There's no additional materials used, and it's just one of these figures that when I was a young lad, there was no way I was spending my pocket money on this. And having since acquired a blue Snaggletooth, not a real one of course, from Smith Lord Creations, I absolutely love that figure. This one is okay, I guess, but not something I was particularly interested in as a child. Now next up, Master Yoda. This is probably the smallest of them all, is he? Yeah, he is the smallest figure that Kenner produced. And despite him being such an important character in The Empire Strikes Back, I had no desire to purchase this one. However, in terms of value for money, this one actually does kind of hit it out the park, because we have the fabric cape, the belt, the snake, and the cane. So this one did come packed with features, but it's just so damn small. Now, as an adult, I can look at this figure and say, yeah, this is a great action figure. So much playability, I guess. You have so many accessories to play with. And as I said, he's such an important character in the story. I don't know why I ignored him as a child. Oh, excuse me. He really is a good-looking little figure. Now, the Ugnaught, I ignored this one for a number of reasons. Firstly being, he was just a little pig-faced looking character that I did not like the look of. I also didn't like the fact that his accessory was a lunchbox. At least with the Jawa Snaggletooth, you got blasters. I can't really think of many boys who picked an action figure because it came with a lunchbox. And also the apron, it looks good from the front, but the way that it's tied on, it's just terrible. It's a terrible way they've done this. I'll talk about the capes on various figures in another other video, but this way of tying the cape on, I think, is absolutely awful. Value for money, so-so. You got fabric cape, but you got a lunchbox. Now on to Wicket, which is my worst figure that Kenner ever produced. There's just nothing redeeming about this figure. Okay, it came with a rubber hood and a spear, but this one it just looks ridiculous, and even more so when the hood is removed. I mean, that is a little teddy bear that you would give to a 3-year-old girl, and I remember seeing this one on the pegs back in '84 and thinking, what the hell is that? I was never particularly enamored by Ewoks in the first place. From memory, I only had the one Ewok, the Chief Chirpa, and I think I got that because I was impressed to see him on the box of the speeder bike. Other than that, I have no desire to collect any Ewoks, and this one is just a truly, truly awful Star Wars figure. But as I mentioned earlier, in terms of value for money, I was all about full-sized action figures, and just in terms of value for money, you're getting so much more plastic. And in the case of figures like Vader, you got a cape and a lightsaber. Just something that boys would like. These, not so much, but maybe I'm the exception. Maybe other people out there did love the smaller figures. And, you know, now that I'm many, many decades older, I have a new appreciation for these figures, because obviously you have to have them if you want to complete your collection. There's no getting around that. Even Wicket, you have to have them. So yeah, those were the midgets of the Star Wars Kenner line. So that was the tiny little figures that Kenner gave us back in the 80s. Now comment below, did you have these figures? Did you enjoy them? As I said, I never had any of these, but now that I see them, 40 some years later, I love these little figures. So anyway, I want to say a big thank you to the Patreons, and as always, I ask you, if you enjoyed this video, to please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more videos from All Things 80s.